The Phyrexians on Dominaria have regrouped and launched an attack on Urza's tower, threatening Teferi's mission to the past. Here, in the present, new allies come to humanity's defense as Elspeth Tirel struggles to overcome personal loss. Hey everyone, I'm Simon here for the Aether Hub, bringing you more Magic the Gathering lore. Today's story brings us back to the Gatewatch on Dominaria, holed up in Urza's tower, preparing to send Teferi back in time to uncover the secret of the Silex's use. Elesh Norn has sent word to her minions on Dominaria that their attacks must continue, that invasion of the plane is imminent. So, they prepare to strike at one of the strongest holdouts of mages and planeswalkers left. This is getting really good, guys, as more characters are introduced to the struggle against Phyrexia, and the night brings war. Before we begin, I just want to thank those in the Vorthos army, those of you who have decided to support us by becoming a member of the channel. If you also want to consider becoming a member, go ahead and check out all of the perks by clicking the join button on our channel homepage. You can also support us by simply leaving this video a like, sharing it with others, and becoming a subscriber. And with that, let's get back to the lore. This is Chapter 6 of the Brothers' War story, The Dark, written by Reinhardt Suarez. Elspeth, being the planeswalker with the most experience in battle, was put in command of Saheeli's construct soldiers. Resembling an armored beetle standing on two legs, these constructs were poor substitutes for real knights. They would never be wounded in defense of one another, or pray to some divine being on behalf of one another. They knew only steel. As she sparred with one of them, her body responded immediately, relying on muscle memory that came from years of practice. Abruptly, she stumbled, her sword clattering to the floor. Since her experiences on New Capenna, her movements have become sluggish, her sword arm weak. Wrenn and her partner Tree 7 stepped in from the rain, handing Elspeth's sword back to her. "You inhabit two melodies. How is this possible?" Wrenn asked. The Dryad explained that every being was a part of a song, a melody that contributed to the whole. There were two melodies within Elspeth, as if she lived two separate lives, one in light and the other in shadow. Wrenn stopped for a moment, listening. She heard a disturbance in the rhythm of the rain. Two beings, human-sized, outside. They went to investigate together, finding the figures approaching, surrounded by a faint green glow. Planeswalkers. But were they friend or foe? It was the elven warrior Nissa and the human pyromancer Chandra. They were both warm and friendly, but they weren't Elspeth's friends. Perhaps they would prove valuable allies, but for now, she couldn't stand around sipping tea and socializing. It wasn't the time to learn of their stories. She handed the newcomers off to Kaya to debrief them so she could get back to her duties. These duties, helping Saheeli upgrade the dilapidated defense of the tower, suited her just fine. The task gave her time to process everything that happened to her, crawling out of Theros' underworld, finding her home plane, and then losing Ajani. As she worked, she started to recite a prayer to Bant's guardian angel, Asha, but she stopped herself. What faith did she have left to give? Everything she loved was gone, taken away from her. She hated the Phyrexians, especially for what they did to Ajani. Then she remembered Giada, the young angel she rescued on her home plane of New Capenna. Giada had told Elspeth that her failures did not define her, but when she tried to sleep at night, all she could think about were the people that she wasn't able to protect. When Elspeth was finished repairing the tower's turrets, she found Chandra and Jodah enjoying a bottle of wine between them, reminiscing about their fallen friend, Jaya. They spoke fondly of her fiery temper and how terrible her cooking was, especially the quiche. "Let me have one turn on Saheeli's time machine and I'd go back. I'd go back and eat the whole damn thing," Jodah said in a sullen tone. Elspeth watched as Chandra embraced Jodah to comfort him. She didn't have to know Jaya to understand what she meant to them. She was the closest of friends. Elspeth tried to sneak past them unnoticed, but Chandra saw her and invited her over. Elspeth sat down reluctantly, telling them that she was sorry for what happened and empathized with how difficult it was to mourn when they had the Phyrexian invasion to worry about. However, they weren't mourning their friend. They were celebrating her life, the way she would have wanted them to. Since Elspeth didn't know Jaya, they asked her about someone she did know, someone that she had lost. There were many. You'd think after decades of fighting, I'd be used to loss, but I can't escape the names of those who fell to save me, of those whose blood is on my hands because of my failure. Their ghosts haunt my dreams." Jodah told her that it had been centuries for him, being 4,000 years old. It didn't get any easier, not if you let yourself love. The three toasted to those they had lost, not yet ready to count Ajani among them. In the dead of night, the Phyrexians attacked. Elspeth ran to Saheeli's workshop, where the temporal anchor was transporting Teferi's spirit through time. They hadn't found the information that they needed yet. Nissa and Wrenn would need to protect Teferi, while Elspeth and Jodah would head out to fight alongside Saheeli's mechanical soldiers and the clay statues to buy them as much time as possible. A dark shape formed in the clouds. A skyship with horns and jagged spikes turned and plummeted towards the central tower, pivoting on bat-like wings and landing on the ground. Elspeth and Jodah armed themselves with Power Stone lances, mounted horses, and led the march to defend the tower. They heard the hissing battle cry of the Phyrexians as they charged. The front line was humanoid warriors, though their bodies seemed to be made up of blades and serrated edges. Behind them were what looked like mounted units atop lupine creatures, agile enough to navigate the slippery terrain. As they got closer though, they could see that they weren't mounted at all, but fused together as one being. Then, there were winged knights, their upper body humanoid, but their lower bodies 8 spidery legs holding spiked balls for ramming their enemies from above. With a single motion of his hand, Jodah revealed a phantasmal terrain spell he had prepared, a crisscross lattice of sharpened logs. The front line of Phyrexians, who were unable to stop their forward momentum, crashed into the barricade. Jodah uttered another word, and the logs burst into flame. The Phyrexians were skewered and charred. Elspeth and Jodah charged at the Phyrexian forces on opposite sides of the battlefield, raising their lances, pressing on the crystal inserts on the shafts. The lances' power stones grew bright and shattered. Each erupted with a band of energy reaching across the battlefield to the other. As they ripped through the Phyrexian forces with the energy band, a winged knight swooped from above to attack Elspeth. Elspeth deflected a blow, but her mount fell over. As she pushed herself up, her attacker kicked her back down, lifting its axe-like arm, ready to strike. Elspeth gave the knight a quick kick of her own, and she spun back to her feet. She drew her halo-infused sword, Luxior, that emanated a blinding white light. She thrust it through the Phyrexian's midsection, where its fleshless skull was embedded instead of being attached to its neck. Pushing the abomination off of her sword, she ordered her metal legion to charge. Elspeth cut her way to Jodah, and the two of them surveyed the battlefield. Victory was within reach. The Phyrexian ship shuddered as it began to grow. Legs sprouted from the hull as it stood up, higher than even the tower. Arcane sigils in the language of Phyrexia glowed red, proclaiming a new world order. Jodah pulled a small leather pouch on a string from around his neck and handed it to Elspeth. "You are powerful, Elspeth, not because of the strength in your sword arm, and not because you are a planeswalker. It's deeper. Your desire for connection, to be the hand that thrusts itself into the flames to rescue another, to have peace, family, a home, to belong." He gripped the pouch tightly. "It's a final gift from Jaya to Phyrexia. You can help me cast it." They rode until they were underneath the behemoth Phyrexian ship, where Jodah spread his arms and rose into the air, reciting words in a language Elspeth didn't understand. "Let go," Jodah said, tapping into her mind. "Let go of your anger, your pain, your ghosts. Stretch your consciousness past them, past the ground, past the sky, past all boundaries of your waking life." Elspeth closed her eyes and envisioned the plains of Bant, then the fields of grain of Theros. She was there, in both places at once. She reached further, until she was no longer just herself. She became everything. As she opened her eyes, she realized that she was the center of an energy field that surged from her body. Jodah instructed her to bring it back inside of her and to root it deeply, until she could no longer contain it. She willed the energy storm into her soul, and the energy began to tear her apart. She heard Jodah's voice. "Focus, Elspeth. Choose one thing, the one thing in your life that gives you strength, gives you purpose. Channel your entire being into it." Ajani, the one person who could give her hope. Home is duty. Family is those who you choose to defend. She realized her duty wasn't only to defend others, but to allow her loved ones to protect her, to trust them. Ajani trusted her to rescue him, and she believed she could bring him back. Radiance poured from her body, surging over Jodah, then arcing towards the sky. She and Jodah were connected, consumed by the blaze of energy, becoming one with the storm. They united, expanding larger than even the Phyrexian ship, and vaporized it. Then, the energy ceased, and Elspeth fell to the ground once again herself. "We did it! You, me, and Jaya!" Elspeth said as she put her arm around Jodah's shoulder. A blue-white light flashed and Urza's tower groaned. It was under attack, from the opposite side. This army was merely a distraction. They turned to see Rona, the former Tolarian student who now served Phyrexia, raising her glaive to send the two of them flying backwards. Elspeth was able to get up and unsheath her sword, but as she did, she saw Rona standing over Jodah, plunging her glaive into his gut. Elspeth was drained from Jodah's spell, too tired to cast one herself or even to planeswalk, so she trudged forward with Luxiar in hand. Rona was swift, but Elspeth knew the dance. She crouched, waiting, gathering all the strength she had left. Rona gave her an opening. Elspeth blocked the strike with her shield, the glaive point piercing through the wood into Elspeth's forearm. Screaming through the pain, she wrenched the glaive from Rona's hand, as her own sword crunched deep into her foe's shoulder. A voice from behind her. "Tirel, I never expected to actually see you again." It was Tezzeret, who approached and pulled the glaive from Elspeth's arm. He picked up Rona, hoisting her onto his shoulder, and turned to tell Elspeth to take Jodah and disappear. He was sparing her. But why? "Small cracks, Tirel," Tezzeret said. "That's how even the mightiest edifice begins to crumble." He bowed his head in some twisted gesture of respect, then carried Rona back through the dark. So there you guys go, chapter 6 of the Brothers' War story. As we saw in the previous chapter, Tezzeret continues to play the part of a willing Phyrexian commander on Dominaria, leading this attack with Rona on the known location of the Planeswalker resistance. Tezzeret is pretty smart. He knows their enemy's capabilities and sent them to their own doom. We know he is in actuality trying to hinder Elesh Norn's plans, so rescuing Elspeth and giving her advice and simply just retreating, this is how Tezzeret is aiding the resistance from within. This story really brought Elspeth Tirel into the greater Phyrexian conflict. Now, I gotta say, I wish the revelation of Ajani being completed packed a bit more of a punch. Maybe she witnesses his betrayal firsthand or something like that. But still, everything she learned on New Capenna, her escape from the underworld, it's all starting to build her character as one soul divided by light and dark. Anyway, the heroes are busy fending off Phyrexians while Teferi travels back in time. Will they be able to protect him for as long as he needs? Let me know in the comment section below. I again want to thank all the supporters of the channel in the Vorthos army, those who have become members of the channel. We cannot thank you enough. You're awesome. If you'd like to support our content, consider becoming a member yourself by clicking the join button at the homepage of the channel. You can also support us by simply leaving this video a like, becoming a subscriber, and sharing it with friends. As always guys, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!